So this is part 2 to whether or not it's fair to expect your partner to put in as much work as you do in the relationship. In the last video, I brought up a concept of fairness versus equity that applies here, and that it's important to consider a partner's attachment style, including their personality needs, before judging them negatively for how much work they're doing in a relationship. And that's because growth work doesn't come naturally to everyone or isn't naturally gratifying to a person necessarily. And essentially, that can mean that they have more work to do at baseline than for a partner who naturally pours into that kind of work. Not that that latter partner who's doing the pouring in pretty naturally, it doesn't mean that's not necessarily hard work for them to do emotionally or whatever. But if it's natural for them and part of their needs and attachment style, it's still an important difference between the partners. So this is true for me, for example. I'm always working on myself and doing various self-growth work. So it'd be disingenuous for me not to take that into account when considering the emotional labor that I do in a relationship. And it's unfair for me to expect someone else to do an equal amount of work. But I think it's important to cue into that phrase "as much as," from like whether it's fair for your partner to do as much of the work in the relationship. Because, you know, we're really talking about that issue of like how we're measuring it and how we're looking at it. But it doesn't mean in any way that they're off the hook. So your partner still would have a responsibility to be engaged and to put in effort to change patterns. And that's ultimately the goal anyway, right? To have the effective work actually happening and the change happening. So overall, it can just be helpful to realize that measuring amounts of effort by time or some other measure like that may not be the right way to go. But it does not at all mean that there still shouldn't be that engagement with the process of change happening.